Let us rise. Grace, mercy, and especially God's peace to you from God our Father and from our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Dear friends in Christ, the basis for our meditation today is from the book of Revelations. We are nearing the end, and I wanted to look at these portions which are sometimes scary and sometimes we have trouble figuring them out. And I entitled this sermon basically a bumper sticker. If you've seen this bumper sticker, it's pretty good, but it's know God and no peace. But if you know God, you know peace. And so from Revelations we read, and these are in your bulletin, and you'll notice there's no place for you to write answers to things I'm going to tell you because I didn't have enough space, and so you can feel free to write or just take a Labor Day break. But as we start, I remember that first pencil that Hank used, which was unsharpened on each end, and I have some of those similar in my pencil thing on my desk. And when I printed them, it says, this pencil is like life without Jesus. There's no point. So we read, then one of the seven angels who had the seven bowls came and said to me, come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of those whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk. And he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup, full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon, the great mother of prostitutes and of the earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. When I saw her, I marveled greatly. But the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I tell you the mystery of the woman and the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns that carries her. The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. The dwellers on earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. They are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is and the other is not yet come. And when he does come, he must remain only a little while. As for the beast that was and is, it is an 8th, but it belongs to the 7, and it goes to destruction. And the 10 horns that you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received royal power, but they are to receive authority as kings for 1 hour, together with the beast. These are of one mind, and they hand over their power and authority to the beast. They will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is the Lord of lords and the King of kings, and those with him are called and chosen and faithful. And the angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. For God has put into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And the woman that you saw is the great city that has dominion over the kings of the earth. Here ends the text. You may be seated. See, that was so clear I don't need to say anything else about it. When we get to the book of Revelation, we need to remember, again, as we've talked about it, and next week we finish off our 2-year Through the Bible series, and I just want to give thanks and praise to all of you who have been faithfully following along with us. But as in the book of Revelation, as we talked about the past 2 weeks as we've been in it, there's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of things representing stuff, is what symbolism is. And when we see numbers in the book of Revelation, we need to keep in mind that God has certain numbers he likes. And those numbers we'll reveal them 1, 3, 7, 10, 12, and multiples thereof. He just loves those numbers. Why? Because he's God, and he can. You may have a favorite number, probably you don't, but only certain people. My sister-in-law's got her master's in math. She has a favorite number, I'm sure. To me, I'm not a math person. It doesn't bother me that much. But people have favorite colors. People have, favorite things. And it's just why? Because they like them. So God has these numbers. And in the Scriptures, one thing we haven't talked about yet in the numbers business of what is the number of man? You see, because man has a number in Scriptures too. And man is number 4. Again, why? We don't know. But when we see things like 40 years or 40 days, it's the time of completeness of man, 4 times 10. You have to kind of do the math on that. But we come upon this beast, and this beast, excuse me, let's go back one slide. It said one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls of wrath starts talking to John. And when we see this beast rise up, it says, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who is seated on many waters." When we see the great prostitute, it is about sexual immorality, but it's also about any immorality, anything where we sell ourselves to anything else other than God. And so the great prostitute is basically Satan trying to deceive us, trying to give our allegiance to the things of earth and not to God. There's an old song, I can't think of his name, but I love it. I love the phrase in the song says, "The stuff of earth competes for the allegiance I owe only to the glory of God my King." You see, the stuff of earth competes for our allegiance. This is the great Satan. We get deceived by the stuff. Again, another bumper sticker, I love the one that says, "He who dies with the most toys still dies." It's not about the accumulation of stuff. I've been to so many funerals, and never do they put stuff. They don't put a house, they don't put cash, they don't put a bank deposit, anything into the casket, into the ground. Nobody takes anything with them. And so in this Revelation book, what John is seeing is he's seeing the depravity of man and the fall of man, where man chooses to seek after the things that Satan deceives him. And Satan is a great deceiver, and so when we see Satan appear on this beast, the beast has 7 heads and 10 horns, because Satan wants to be like God. He will deceive you by making you think that things are good, that, well, God would approve of this. We see this happening in our society all the time when people say, well, God is love, and so he has to love me even if I sin. Well, God loves you, he died for you. But if you choose to go after other things, he will let you go. Oh, he will grieve. He will call for you. He will try to bring you back. He's already paid the price for your admission to heaven, but will you show up? And so in this text we see the woman in verse 3 says, "He carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman seated on a scarlet beast that was full of blasphemous names, and it had 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup." Well, everything looks good. But in that cup are the abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. You see, she entices you. The world entices you with stuff that looks good, stuff that appears pleasing. But there's a cost to it. John has shown these visions so he can remind us, that he can warn us that not all that glitters is gold, to use another little phrase. That the stuff of this earth is not what we seek. And Satan will deceive you with all kinds of flashy things and sparkly things. He'll tell you there's an easy path. Well, we find out that path leads to destruction. And so at the end, verse 6, he says, "I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I marveled greatly." And the angel, first thing he says is, "Why are you marveling?" But we do marvel. How many of you have been amazed sometimes at the impudence of somebody? Somebody says something, somebody acts in a way, and you go, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe they did that." John is just marveling at the fact that here is a woman this is a person who people seek after, follow after. And yet he sees only the impurities of what she's taking into her, of how she lives, of all that the impurities of the world are. There are things as we draw near to God that the world says are good, and we look and we say, no. You kind of begin to understand, and you look at the stuff and say, why are you seeking after that? It can't lead to any good end. And so the next part, it says that the angel said to me, why do you marvel? I will tell you the mystery of the woman. You see, it's amazing. The beast she rides is red, which you remember from last week of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. The symbolism of red in the book of Revelation is war, is anger, is frustration, and death. And she rides a beast that is, it was, and is yet to come. And boy, that sounds really confusing. But she rides a beast, there's no changes, is basically what it means. There's always been war, there is war, and there's war yet to come. So in verse 8 it says, the beast that you saw was, is, and about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. The dwellers on earth have names whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. It's going to be neat. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be world-shaking. And yet they're chasing after the wrong things. When we see tragedies come, we shouldn't run towards them. We should fall to our knees and pray to God. When we see these things arise, we need to pray to God and give thanks and seek our strength in Him alone. And so it says in verse 10 and 12 again, the 12 horns, 10 horns that you saw are the 10 kings who have not yet received royal power. And again, when we see the number 10, think of a number of completeness. People have tried to, and God bless them, but people have tried to make the book of Revelation into a textbook, or, well, we just need to figure out the code, and then we can put with these 10 phrases, and I've seen people who have done, you know, the industrial age, the scientific age, they've put these all as part of the kings. And the answer is that when God has seen all that He intended for us to see, the time is done. There will be ages and times when things will go. There'll be 10 different kings. There'll be a time of completion, is all it means, where people will chase after other things as if they are God, or as if they rise and serve God. We live in a world where laws have been supreme, where science reigns supreme, where we see all these different things, and God is still in control. And so it says, and these are of one mind, they hand over their power and authority to the beast. Every one of these ages winds up not serving God, but serves Satan. They wind up leading people away from God rather than to Him. And so in verse 14 it says, they will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. Very simple, for He is the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. He's already won. The victory is already ours. When we see these things in Revelation, don't be terrified by them. Marvel at the power and wonderment of God, because God has already seen these things. All the struggles you are facing in your life are no surprise to God. Excuse me. All the struggles that you face in your life, everything that comes upon you that surprises you, those terrible phone calls we get that surprise us with bad news, those days we sit in the doctor's office on that paper thing I don't understand, with a gown that opens the wrong way, and we hear words that scare us from the doctor. God is not surprised. God is still in control. There is no surprise in heaven with this. There is no surprise. There is nothing coming at you that God is not aware of. There is nothing coming in your life that God has not prepared you for. And there is nothing in your life that God is not greater in, because He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He conquers, He wins. That's really the whole. You could If I ever gave you a test on the book of Revelations and said, what is, explain to me the book of Revelations, and if you wrote, God wins, that would be sufficient. The answer is that no matter what we face, no matter what the world faces, no matter how people go astray, God still wins. No matter how strong Satan may appear, no matter how much he may try to deceive us, God wins. And in the end of this passage we see in verse 16, the angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. Everybody, all nations, will serve her rather than serve God. And it said the 10 horns you saw, they are the beast. They and the beast will hate the prostitute. You see, there is no honor among thieves. Satan doesn't share. Satan doesn't love. That's the problem with Satan. Satan is only focused on me, and we live in a society sometimes where me is beginning to be the most important. And when we live in a society where me reigns, selflessness is lost. And truly, selflessness is a mark of God. Because God came to serve, not to be served. Because God came to give his life in exchange for ours. You see, we serve a selfless God, one who views us as having great worth and measure, so much that he would give himself for us. But Satan thinks only of himself. And sinful people think only of themselves. And when they think of themselves, they begin to war against other people who think of themselves only. And so here we see that Satan will, and his demons and those who follow him will contend against each other. It'll never be enough. They can't be in charge, and so they fight and they war with each other. Because they don't understand the nature of a giving love. Of a love that serves others. Of a love that this church has for our community as we establish a school. A love that this church has for those who don't know Christ because of the mission work we do. You see, that's a self-giving love. That's how you know the marks of a church, if they love others more than they love themselves. And so it says in verse 17, for God has put into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over the royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. You see, again, God is in control. God is in control, and he allows Satan to reign on this earth simply so that people may recognize and turn to him. That they may recognize the fruitlessness of serving a God, of serving something that is only concerned about itself and takes from them rather than gives. And that they might turn to a God who loves them, a God who forgives them, a God who strengthens them, a God who gives to them everything rather than takes everything from them. I always find it interesting when people say, well, all the church wants is my money. I said, you're exactly opposite. I had a person once do this to me, and I said, you're exactly wrong. I said, the church is the only place I know of in America where you can go and it doesn't cost you anything. I said, before I can drive my car, I have to pay for gas. Before I can turn on the lights, I have to pay the electric bill. And I said, actually, my phone, I pay in advance for my phone service. They bill me for the extra stuff later. I said, before I go into a movie, I have to pay. Before I get my popcorn at the movie, I have to pay. See, every place I go wants money. But the church, you can come into the church and you can sit down and you don't have to put anything in the offering plate if you don't desire. You can come to the church and you can avail yourselves of the service of the church. We will minister to you. We will bind you up, all at no charge. You'll never get a bill. So the church is the only place I know of that isn't after your money. But it is when we teach the selflessness of God. It is a place where the people of God say, I want to support this and I will give of what God has given me. Out of thankfulness, not out of something due. But out of joy that what God has given to them, and they want to share that with others. So the stewardship we have is not because we owe God not because we are buying our salvation, but because we owe God everything.